Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tea Time, episode number 112. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to record Tea Time this week, and in continuing with the honesty vein, I'm not certain that Tea Time will remain a weekly podcast, at least for the short term. It may, for the busy part of the semesters, run every other week. At worst once a month, but I don't see it going quite that infrequent. I would say every other week is much more likely. And part of that relates to sort of our what's happening, the segment for today. And it picks up from the post that I wrote earlier this week. I'm calling it my heart-to-heart post in the show notes, about my epiphany that I'm trying to do too much, that my job is really, really stressful right now, for better or for worse. There's really nothing that I can do about the situation aside from the way that I react to it. And so I'm working on that. And I'm also, a wife and a mother, and my free time needs to be prioritized for them. And so I'm just not going to, with the way that everything is right now, with me being at work a little bit more than I usually am, and the time that I'm here being much more intense than usual, and the fact that the kids are going back to school. We start school later here in Western New York. We don't go back until after Labor Day, so the kids have just gone back to school. Everybody's just getting adjusted to this new routine, and it's just so super busy, and trying to get everybody adjusted to all of that is not an easy thing, as I'm sure you all know. And so I'm just not going to have as much leisure time for the things that I enjoy, like this, just for the next little while, I guess. So what that means is that, sort of honing in on this epiphany that I had, in a given week, if I just feel like it would be too much to post and or do the podcast, I just have to accept that I can't do them that week. And I think that you all understand that. I put so much pressure on myself. This is part of a larger issue, that I put all this pressure on myself to meet certain daily expectations. And in the past, it hasn't been a problem. But with the way that my job has intensified, and with the kids getting older and having more needs in terms of us taking them places and spending time with them, it changes everything, right? Everything is always changing. I noticed that early on in my journey as a parent, that the needs of your kids are always changing and you need to adjust to them. I feel like I'm always delayed, that with Henry being the oldest, I'm like figuring it out later than I should be, but we always do our best. And so I think that we're all just transitioning into this new season. It's mostly the job, to be honest with you. The kids with going back to school, my kids are not really involved in a lot of activities. We'll talk about that in a second. But, there's small changes, but mostly it's my work. And as you know, by spending this time with me here over the course of the past year, since the fall of 2016, it has been a grind. It has been a very difficult emotional and spiritual struggle for me, because I have always loved my job as a librarian. And the way that my job has changed over time is in a way that I have not anticipated. And it is in a way that does not always allow me to thrive. And so what does that mean? It means I need to either adjust to it or I need to find a new job. And finding a new job is not so easy at this stage of my career, where I'm, fairly comfortable and ensconced. And with our kids getting older, we're thinking about, not thinking about retirement. Certainly we're way too young for that, but just planning for that eventuality in a smart way, so that when you do reach that point, several decades down the road, that you're in a good position. I get really good retirement benefits here and health benefits here, and so it's not such an easy thing to just switch jobs anymore. So, right, this is just one of those things. And I'm certain that there's many of you out there that relate to this in your various situations. and we all just have to soldier on as best we can. Sometimes God opens a door for us, and I'm definitely keeping my eyes open much more for those doors, because if that's what God is trying to tell me, I want to be ready and open to that. But at this stage of my life, I'm also aware of the fact that sometimes God doesn't open that door, even though we may really want a big change. And there may be something that God wants us to learn in our current situation and to grow from that. And, that situation may change and evolve in subtle ways that allow us to then thrive. And so I'm keeping my eyes very open for that as well. And I'm not really sure yet exactly where this is going, but that's all part of it, right? That where you only see the trees and God can see the forest. And so you just have to trust that it's all going to work out okay. So that's kind of where I am. It's been, the weekend, like I wrote about, was very stressful because of work. And I made this decision when I came back on Tuesday that I was not going to do that again. That it doesn't matter how ugly my email gets. I can deal with it all when I'm here during the week. And, it'll be whatever it's going to be. It'll be fine. This is not life or death. Everything will get handled, and I will do my very best with it, and it's going to go just fine. I just need to have more faith that everything is going to work out okay, And so, okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about like sort of spiritual and emotional struggles during stress at work. But in terms of like practicalities with the blog and the podcast, I'm always going to be here. It just might not be the timing. I am so type A. And so I like everything to be the same all the time. But, there are going to be some weeks where it's just not going to be that way. And I know that you all understand. So if there's a week without a podcast, the next week I'll probably have one. And, we're done with the most stressful part of the semester by beginning of November. I'll still have a lot to do with grading and other things. I think we're going to be doing workshops and I may be doing other teaching. But it won't be quite as intense as it is right now. And so things are just going to ebb and flow, and we'll ebb and flow together. And it's part of the journey, and I am seeing it now as a very positive thing rather than a negative. Okay, so there's that. But, circling back to stress and dealing with those things. So I just really want to transform my current situation into something positive and beautiful. And I've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, in the spring, I took a little bit of a step back with teaching because we were team teaching. So you're always in the room with another librarian. And so you sort of divide up the tasks in terms of who's going to be the more dominant speaking teacher and who's going to be the librarian teacher going around and helping individual and small groups of students. I took on that latter role a lot more in the spring, and I definitely thrive more in that role. I enjoy that. And I just needed a break from the fall in which I was the lead instructor for between 13 and 15 sections of this class that we teach, this library lab. It was damaging in many ways to me emotionally and psychologically because the load, which everybody here agrees with, including all of our supervisory people, that it was too much. And so everybody needed to sort of recuperate from that in their own way. And for me, that was the way that I did. And it was very beneficial coming into the fall. I felt much more refreshed and recharged. I already started to feel burnt out again because things have just been stressful again. However, there's a lot of positives to be drawn from it. And in some of the sections, I've had to be the lead instructor again because we have librarians helping us out because there's just too many sections for our small team to handle on our own because we cannot go back to the 15 class model. Everybody agrees that that was just too many. Everybody having over 300 students, that was crazy. So we have other librarians helping us out, and they don't usually teach classes, and so they need us to be, they're always paired with one of our team members on the teaching team, and so we need to be the lead instructors in those classes, and I have 5 classes with those librarians. And so I knew that going in, and it's been wonderful. I've been loving it. I get to infuse my own style and humor into the classes again, and it's been going great. So that's a really positive thing. The other positives is just that I've been able to be more myself. In last fall, it was so unexpectedly awful that and the burden was it was way too many students for us to deal with, and so I found myself being impatient and just not my usual Tiffany self when talking to students over email. I was just feeling not very charitable towards them because the stress situation was just so far above anything that we had ever experienced before. Now, I still think it's too much, if I'm being perfectly honest. However, it's less bad, and I'm much more aware of the potential for this to come up. We still have almost 250 students each. That's still, I think, too many. It's still a lot, but I'm better able to handle it because I'm prepared. Like, okay, in the first couple of weeks, I'm going to get these very frustrating questions because students are not reading the directions and they're not just clicking on links. And when I'm prepared for that, I'm better able to just be myself when I direct them and talk to them about it. And that's a good feeling. I want to be my usuals. I want to be funny and kind and nice. And when you're under a lot of stress and pressure, you tend to sometimes, if you're off that, it's not what we want to do, but it's part of our human nature. And now I'm able to really focus myself more on the types of qualities that I want students to see in me. I want them to see kindness and charity and gentleness. And that's been going 100% better. And I feel better about it because even when frustrating situations erupt, like yesterday when we got to our classroom and we had no lights for half the class, we had a working projector. And so we actually started the class. It's hard to have one be different from all the others because there's 90 of them. And you don't want one class not getting that lesson. Then what do you do with them and the assignment that all the other students were doing? It's hard to then remember which section was that. It gets totally out of hand. You want them to all be standardized. And so we didn't want to cancel the class just for that one section before they fixed it. And, we made it work. And just all these unexpected things happen. And when I deal with it in a positive, crisis mode in a positive way, I feel better about myself. I feel better about my job. I feel better about what I'm doing. And, everybody has their weak moments, but on the whole, I'd say it's going really well. And I think that this applies to so many things that may be going on in your life. Obviously, it's not just teaching, it's so many things. If you have a health crisis going on right now in your family, like I know some of you do, and other types of situations with your kids, with your marriage, with all different types of jobs that you all may be doing right now. I think that we can all be united in solidarity for praying for each other, trying to get each other through this, and, knowing these positive coping mechanisms. So if you have a situation to relate to this, I would love to hear about it. It could be something completely different from what I'm going through right now, but if you, try to handle it in a way like I described, or if you have another tip for how to handle it, we'd love to hear from you. All right, sort of on that theme, our community and praying for each other, I had a thought the other day that I didn't forget, which is always a positive thing. And I thought to myself, if I'm not able to post on the blog as often, and if there's going to be a couple of weeks between podcasts, I'd like there to be a place where we all can go to support each other and talk to each other. I know some of you use Twitter, which has been great. I'm on Twitter every day, but some of you don't. And I was thinking, I haven't had enough time to devote to this, but I'd like to look into a place where we can virtually hang out together. Some of the people in my circle, if you will, some of my friends in my online community, through various podcasts that I listen to and on Facebook and Twitter, I have seen people talking about Slack a lot more. I am unfamiliar with Slack. I do not have an account over there, but I would be curious to learn more about it. It's an online, I think this is sort of a modern version of old message boards back in our early from the early 2000s, where you can go and talk in a virtual environment. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how it's different from threaded strings of messages like used to be in the old style message boards, but I'm going to find out and see if there's other alternatives that we may like. I don't know. But I thought about that as I was taking a walk, that might be fun. I know we have a small community here, but I think that might be a nice way to sort of corral everybody if you're all interested. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I'll post this in the show notes too, if anybody, I may have some readers that don't always listen to the podcast, and so if they see the post, hopefully they'll see this at the bottom. I would be curious to get your thoughts where we could just, come in there and, put prayer requests and support each other. Yeah, what do you think? All right, so we don't just have to always rely on blog comments, and if you use Twitter or not. Okay, that's another food for thought. We're already at 16 minutes, but I needed this today. Because I thought, it's like, okay, if I'm not going to have time for tea time, it's okay. I can just do it next week. But, I got some things done when I got in. I answered some email, and I thought to myself, I need a break before I go and teach to recharge. So here I am. We may run a little bit over today, but that's okay, right? Because we may not have tea time next week. So let me know your thoughts on all of those things. Hanging in there. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get to the prayer corner. But, my spirits have been high. I have so much emotional support from my husband and my friends and family, and that's been wonderful. So we're getting there. I had mentioned kids' activities, and then I didn't circle back to that. So I just wanted to say, it's been such an emotional week, just because I'm dealing with all of this and trying to channel that into a positive emotional and spiritual place, but also because my kids went back to school, and I knew Henry was not looking forward to going, and I was really feeling for him. He's going into 7th grade. That's just a tough age. He just prefers to be at home. Mike and I, for the first time in our lives, we had a conversation about homeschooling. It's not the school itself. I think Henry's perfectly happy in his classroom. We, talked to him about this, but he doesn't always like being in school, in the structured format of like having to go in, the routine. He's like, we're just there for so long. And I agree with him. I think in traditional schooling, there's a lot of time just by design, by necessity, that if you were homeschooling, you could cover the same material and your day is going to be shorter. So, we talked about it, and, with Mike as an adjunct, a lot of teaching experience, obviously, but he has the schedule flexibility. We had a positive conversation about it. I have a lot more friends that homeschool now, and it's been around long enough now that I feel more comfortable looking at it. And so we had that conversation. I don't think we're going to go that route, definitely not this year, but it was a good conversation to have. And going with Henry going into high school, it's something I think we'll look at again. He wants to go to the Catholic Boys High School. I would love for him to go there. Mike would love for him to go there, but it's very expensive, and I just don't know if we're going to be able to afford it. But as I told Henry last night, he's kind of emotionally invested. We're going to the open house, and he's like, I really want to go there, Mom. He went to a summer camp there over the summer for a week. I said, honey, we really want to send you there. And if it's God's will, it's going to work out. You'll get a scholarship. You'll be able to work at the school and work off some of the tuition. I know that's an option. And financially, maybe I get my student loans paid off, and then we could put the money towards that. We got to wait and see. It's still 2 years away. So that's what is going on with Henry. I'm hoping that he gets involved with something. His indoor soccer thing didn't pan out. They didn't have enough room. So I'm hoping he's going to join. He talked about maybe the bowling league. I don't know. I'd like to see him do something. Henry's reserved, and he needs that little extra push to be social. So we'll see. I'm sure something will work out. My Anne, we went to an open house at the dance studio this week, and she is going to be signed up for pre-ballet. I'm very emotional because I remember being that age. I do. And I love dance, as you all know, and so it's meaningful to me that she also has taken an interest, but I'm not going to push her. If she likes it, fantastic. If she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to do it. But, for this year, she's interested. I'm very pleased with the class that we have her, signed up for. It's pre-ballet. It's designed for 5 to 7-year-olds. It is a basic movement vocabulary class with creative movement infused, and it's very much tailored to kids. There's no competition model in that studio. There's no big recital at the end. They do put on a showcase for family and friends, but there's no costumes involved or anything like that. They act out, you know, a show, and so it's not just like individual routines. And so there's a little bit, I really think Anne's gonna like that creative part of it, the like sort of acting part of it. I would not have thrived in that, but I think Anne will. So I think the studio is a really good fit for her, and I'm excited for her. Her first class is Saturday, September 16th. But I feel emotional about getting her dance shoes and getting her leotard and tights, because I remember being that little girl, and I can't even believe that 35 years have gone by. So that's what's going on with her. They have an adult ballet class that I would love to take, but guess what? I'm overscheduled. The teacher, as I was talking to her, she's like, "I can tell you're a dancer." Yes, just by because of my posture. And I said, "Yeah." So we were talking about that, and I said, you know, at some point in the future, maybe when the kids get bigger, I may be interested in, popping into your adult class. And she's like, "Oh, you don't have to start at beginner. You could start at," I said, "I would like to start at beginner." It has been several decades since I have taken a ballet class, and I would be good at beginner. But there's just not time in my schedule right now. But we'll see someday. I'm excited about finding the studio and potentially, having that for future reference to add to my dance repertoire, but not right now, not in the cards. But Anne will be taking her class just over a week away. All right, let's move on to on my bookshelf really quickly. As I was between classes the other day, I got a notification from Amazon that a book had shipped that I had forgotten that I ordered. And it was a pre-order that had come available, and it is called Supergirls and Halos, My Companions on the Quest for Truth, Justice, and Heroic Virtue by Maria Johnson, who I know from SQPN. And this is a book about saints and tying it into pop culture with comic book heroines and heroines from films, and talking about how they exemplify the virtues for us. And I thought to myself, this sounds lovely. Maria is funny and wonderful and warm. I've met her in person, and so I have read her writing before. I know it's going to be just an uplifting book, and I thought to myself, this is God. I clearly need this book right now, and I actually ordered the print copy, whereas I read so much on Kindle, although with nonfiction, more so fiction I almost exclusively read on Kindle, but nonfiction, if I am going to read a print book, that is usually the genre that it falls into. So I'm thinking this will be wonderful to have on my bedside. I'm excited for it to arrive and get started. I think I'm going to learn something from it, and it's going to help me right now during the semester. I have a link to that in the show notes. It's brand new, available both in print and as an ebook. Prayer Corner. Okay, this is a keeping it real. The 30-day prayer challenge, I'm a failure, but not a complete failure. I was doing okay. I was coming along every day. I was trying to pray one of the offices, either morning, evening, or night. I actually ended up praying morning prayer more, and I was using my Divine Office app, which has an audio option. And so I was listening to it in the car on my way in. I actually was not listening to my podcast in the morning, which I always do. And I was instead listening to morning prayer. And it was lovely. But the app is very buggy, and it's not being supported right now because they're not selling it right now while they work on this copyright issue. And I mean, it's the content every day is for the day, that specific day, but they're clearly just not supporting it, like I said, other than that. And it is buggy. It cuts out sometimes. And the other day I got in my car, I was writing about this in the post, and I went to set up morning prayer, and I could not get the file to download. And I said, this is a sign. Obviously God still wants me to pray, but this is something that I need to learn, a lesson, an important lesson that God is teaching me right now. I don't need to be so invested in praying in one particular way. Whatever way works on a regular basis, on a daily basis, whatever is working for you that day is what you should do. And so I put away my phone. I picked up the Mother Teresa rosary that I had by my side, and for the first time in a long time, I prayed a complete rosary in the car. I started on my way in. I don't have quite enough time to finish it because I have a short commute. But I start on the way, and then I finish on the way home. I've been doing that every day this week, and it feels good. So I haven't failed the 30-day prayer challenge. I just haven't fulfilled the divine office part of that 30-day prayer challenge. Let me know how it's going for you. Have you found inspiration in the divine office, or are you praying in a different way? I'm still seeing this month, September, 30 days, as an opportunity for me to grow in prayer with all of you. So we're still in this together. Let me know how it's going for you. Creative Commons, I actually finished my sweater. This is like a big moment, but how much time have I had to take a photograph of it? 0. However, I'm recording this on a day that I know I'm not going to publish it. So between now and when I publish this podcast, I'm going to have Mike take a picture of me in the sweater. So there will be a picture in the show notes. And I'm thrilled. It's ready for Rhinebeck. I need to block it, and it's big. I don't know if my blocking mats are big enough, but I'd like to stretch the cable out in the back a little bit. So we'll work on that. But hey, the sweater is done and I can wear it. And so it's ready for Rhinebeck in mid-October, and I'm so excited. That trip is going to be a breath of fresh air. I can't wait. So I've been doing that. I've been trying to focus on the positive things, and there are so many positive things right now. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Write in and let me know how things are going with you. What do you think about an online Catholic librarian community? What do you think about the 30-day prayer challenge? How is that going? Are you reading any good books right now? What are you working on in your creative endeavors this fall? Let me know. I will be talking to you soon. I don't know if it's going to be next week, but it will be soon, one way or another. And I found that when I do have the time, like today, recording this right now, yesterday when I wrote that post, I didn't know if I was going to be able to write a post yesterday either, but I put it aside when I was too stressed to worry about it. But when I had, 10 minutes, I had this burst. That was a fairly long post. I wrote it in a short amount of time because I was inspired. I needed to get those thoughts out, and I was able to write it. And so, you're still going to be hearing from me when those moments come. I'm sure they are going to come regularly because with my personality, I know that I need that time. But, the schedule might just be a little bit different than usual for this fall, but it's going to be okay. It's already worlds better than the nightmare that was fall of 2016. So I see that as a win. I hope that you all have a great weekend. I will be talking to you soon. I'll see you then. Bye.